How would you know that? Are you from this great state of Wisconsin?
I tell you what, I may be in a different location, but the dairy state will always be my state. I even got it tattooed on me.
Oh,
Oh,
heck yeah, brother. Well, let's jump right in. Tell me, I know you had just sent me an update, so thank you for that. But for the listeners, why don't you give me an update with where you're at, how you've been feeling, what you've been working on, all of the good stuff you just sent over.
absolutely. So we do our daily or our weekly sit rep, right? Telling you kind of the nuts and bolts of how training's going, weight update, how I'm feeling, things like that. So today I'm at 202 point something pounds. I would have to check to make sure, but compared to last week, we're on our way down, right?
Yep.
Just as we wanted. Um, Overall, training's going well. I've worked in, swimming, biking, and running, which is kind of important for the world's toughest triathlon. You need to swim a lot, bike a lot, and you need to run a lot, right? So in order to prepare for the Norsemen in Norway, August 4th, we're swimming, biking, and running. I filled you in that during my workout sessions, I was feeling kind of like a little lethargic, low on energy. And even with the amount of carbs that I'm consuming, I'm very sure that it's carbohydrate timing. I'm still dialing in, and we'll need your help dialing in the pre-workout carbohydrate kind of equation. And that's where I think like the low energy that I sent you, I think that's where that's coming from. And possibly with these longer sessions, we might have to start looking into adding carbohydrates like halfway through the session. I know there's a ton of liquid carbohydrates out there. There's goos out there. So that's just something that I was kind of thinking about in my mind. And just something that we might have to adjust simply for the fact that I don't like being low of energy, even at the start of training, let alone halfway through my hour and a half session, right? Not ideal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and we can unpack this a little bit more, but whenever I hear low energy, the first things that comes to mind that we need to address, and I'm not saying this is the case, but the first thing that comes to mind is overall energy availability. Are we just consuming enough food throughout the day to fuel this level of activity? Now, we are in this unique place, semi-unique, because we're also trying to cut weight a little bit. So we're strategically underfueling intentionally so that our body can shed weight to get to a body composition that is a little bit more favorable for you to perform even better during the triathlon. In doing so, right, we are intentionally, again, not giving our body adequate fuel. So it is possible that it could be an underfueling issue, okay? So that's possibility number one, and this is where we put the detective hat on as your coach. Possibility number two is exactly as you alluded to. It could be a timing issue. It could be maybe we're not eating the right things at the right time. Okay, so that is option number two. And option number three is, what about total carbohydrates throughout the day? So maybe we're eating calories enough. Maybe we're eating at the correct times, and we're eating the right stuff at the right times, but maybe we're just overall not getting enough carbohydrates, or our macro split could be off too. So all three of those things need to be addressed. So, before I have you continue on, let's unpack this issue a little bit. So outside of training times, right? You said you felt a little lethargic during training. How is your energy throughout the day, right? In between, before, and after sessions?
Before the session, it's pretty good. Wake up feeling refreshed, wake up feeling ready to go on a nice walk most of the mornings. It's afterwards, I do get a little bit of a crash. And then it's just kind of like, whew, all right, I know I have a second session today. I definitely have to get up for this one. And then it's just kind of a grind to get through it.
Okay.
Even after eating, it's more like I'm simply recovering. And then it's just like, okay, I know I can do this. But it doesn't feel like I'm amped up and ready to go. And I did chalk that up to like, okay, yes, we are in a deficit. That is part of it, whether you like it or not. Like, hey, you're going to be a little bit hungry. As I got into the module a little bit, and as we talked about at UHP, is REDS, relative energy deficiency in sport, because I'm doing a lot more than a majority of people do. So I don't know if that's something, kind of what you're alluding to regarding the timing and just the numbers of carbohydrates.
Yeah, so relative energy deficiency in sport, glad you brought it up, is more so about your total fuel intake, right? Your total calories. Are we providing our body with enough just to get through? Because your body has baseline needs, right? And somebody like you who's exercising twice a day at pretty, they're not all high intensity, right? But nonetheless, it's not like your second workout isn't like a walk, right? You're actually still working out. So the intensity is higher than a walk. Because of that, your fueling needs are high. So it's good that our weight's coming down because that's our goal. It could be that we're underfueling too much to reach that objective. So the good thing about nutrition is right now we're so far away from the Norsemen that if we go another week, right, on the same trajectory, we'll see what happens. Is the weight still coming off the way we want it to? Is it coming off too fast? In which case we can obviously add more calories back in, which will be beneficial for your hunger and energy levels. Time will tell, and I'll really leave it up to you as to where you want to go there. My gut as a coach and my bias is always, right, I always like to overfuel rather than underfuel because performance is first and foremost my bias, right? I want you to perform your best. But I understand that we're on a body composition change objective at the moment. That's our primary mission. So we'll see. I say we give it another week, see what happens. I think we can definitely dial in total carbohydrates and timing and see if that makes a difference first before we talk about total calories. So let's talk a little bit about...
I do have a question really quick, though. As we're talking about total carbohydrates and timing, this question more specifically talks about or is in the realm of total carbohydrates. Went through the module, right? Macronutrients, everything, talking about fiber. Obviously, the body uses the carbohydrates you get with like high fiber foods. You don't get the benefits of those carbohydrates. Can you explain that? Because like I know fiber just moves through your system, soluble, insoluble fiber, like it just moves through your system. It doesn't digest. But can you explain that a little bit better to me? Because like how doesn't the body get the carbohydrates from the fiber? Like so like we see a lot of the food labels these days are net carbs. I use the carb balance mission tortillas. So even though it says 33 grams of carbs, it's net carb of 3 because it has 30 grams of fiber. So I'm not necessarily getting that energy. And that's kind of the thing that I want you to explain. Like, why am I not getting that energy, right? Like, even though it says 33 grams of carbs, it's only 3 grams of carbs, really.
Okay. So it's a great question. Just made an adjustment on my screen here. So a couple things to talk about here. Fiber is really an important topic because fiber is something that's really beneficial for our health. I think when people think of fiber, the first thing they think of, well, let me pause. Before UHP or even now, if you think about fiber, why do you think it's important? Like you hear fiber, what's the first thing that comes to mind? It's like the ink blot at the site.
Help me stay regular.
Right, GI function, right? If
Yes.
I need fiber for my GI tract. And that's absolutely an important role of fiber. So fiber can be classified a whole bunch of different ways. There's many sub-classifications, but I think the easiest way to segregate fiber is soluble and insoluble, okay? So fiber that's soluble, okay, will dissolve in water and kind of form this gelatinous mass that will help slow down transit through your GI tract. That's good because it allows then things to get absorbed. If things pass too quickly through you, it doesn't have time to actually digest and absorb those nutrients, right? Insoluble fiber speeds things up. So this healthy balance of kind of both soluble and insoluble is what we're going for. If you eat a well-balanced diet full of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts and seeds, legumes, so on and so forth, you don't really need to specifically target like I need this much soluble, this much insoluble. Only if there was an issue present where we might need to adjust one, like, oh my gosh, like I'm going way too fast, food's passing through me too quickly, like, oh, maybe we need to lower insoluble, increase soluble, so on and so forth. But yes, GI transit time and GI function, absolutely an important role of fiber. The function of fiber that most people don't know about is that it serves as a prebiotic. So let me ask you this. Do you know what a probiotic is?
It just it's bacteria that helps with your gut microbiome. And I know more, but I'm going to let you explain it
It's okay.
because
It's
you
okay.
explain it better.
Yes. So probiotic, right, just refers to bacteria that is beneficial. Okay, there's bacteria that is less beneficial for our health and bacteria that we've found to be very beneficial for our health. And in our gut microbiome, we have both. But we want to really support the probiotic bacteria, the bacteria that offer us good health benefits and support overall health and well-being. Well, any living organism like us needs fuel to live, right? They don't live on hopes and dreams. So what do those probiotic bacteria feed on? Prebiotic fiber. So when we eat a diet that's rich in fiber, we are feeding and supporting a good gut microbiome, okay, with those probiotics. Now, the other important part is, just like us, where we can't live on hopes and dreams, we need food. Well, that food, other than going to our bodies, there's waste products developed, right? So bacteria have waste products too. Oftentimes, those waste products are referred to as postbiotics, okay, in the form of like short chain fatty acids. Now, we can absorb those short chain fatty acids. So although the fiber itself is not technically digestible by us, the bacteria can use it, and what they then produce are short chain fatty acids. We can absorb those short chain fatty acids and use them. Calorically, the amount is negligible. So fiber is still counted as 0 calories, okay? But our bacteria are utilizing it, and we do get some of it redigested. So that's really why fiber is important, okay? The big two reasons. Now, when it comes to a carbohydrate containing food that has total carbohydrates and then fiber and then net carbohydrates, we have to understand what fiber actually is. So fiber is like the skeleton of plant foods, okay? If we look at the chemical structure, it still uses carbohydrates. It's still using like sugar molecules essentially to build the chains and structures. We just can't digest that, if that makes sense. And that's an oversimplification, but I think visually that will help you understand why it's still considered carbohydrate, okay? So the other let's take an apple, for example, okay? There are carbohydrates that aren't fiber that we are going to get calories from. Like in an apple, we have fructose, right? We're going to get the sugars, okay? So overall, that food has a total carbohydrate load, fiber plus the other carbohydrates like fructose, and that's your total. It just then subtracts the fiber because our bodies don't get many calories from it. So when you talk about a product like that Mission tortilla that has so much added fiber where the net carbs are like 3, that's because the fiber they're adding, again, isn't giving you any calories. So, you know, for somebody like you that has a high carbohydrate target, normally I say just add total carbs. We don't need to worry so much about net carbs. But it's products like that that are processed and manufactured specifically to like inject higher fiber. Well, that rule of like just use total carbs doesn't always pan out because, again, I'm telling you to hit a high carbohydrate target, but then when you do products that, you know, it's 30 grams of carbs, but it's only a net of 3, like that's drastic. Normally the fiber's like, you know, 4, 5, 6, 7 grams. It's not taking away too much. So it's negligible in the big picture. But with products like that, yes, like that's not an ideal choice for fueling. Great source of fiber, not an ideal choice for fueling. I think the challenging thing for athletes oftentimes is we know fiber is important and we want to get it in, but fiber containing foods are typically low in calories and they make us feel full. So if we have a high caloric goal, right? We have a high protein goal and now we're trying to get like 30 grams of fiber in. It is physically challenging to eat that food throughout the day, especially because you have 2 training sessions, right? And if we go by the book, we need to avoid fiber containing foods before, during, and sometimes right after workouts. Well, that's a huge portion of your day, leaving only limited time to get 30 grams of fiber in. So although challenging, not impossible, right? And this is why we're working together. So I can help you still get as much fiber as needed for your general health and well-being, but spacing it outside of your training windows far enough so that we can still fuel appropriately. Because the whole purpose of consuming food prior to exercise is getting glucose to your cells, essentially, getting sugar to your cell. We want that time to be as quick as possible because and I was just updating one of my course modules yesterday, and I was like very pumped about this. I was like, it's just like a jet refueling midair, right? Like if you're consuming food intra-workout, we need that fuel to get to your engine fast. We don't want anything to slow it down because like you're on a clock. Like we're trying to preserve glycogen and make sure you don't run out of usable fuel. Otherwise, your plane crashes, meaning you bonk, meaning your body physiologically will kick in its governor and set you at the rate that you can turn fat into usable energy, which in almost all cases is slower and less efficient than carbohydrate because oxygen needs to be present, meaning you can't work at that high percentage of your VO2 max anymore. So I just talked a ton on fiber and carbohydrates, and I kind of lost my place because I got in such a tizzy about it. Did that answer your question? And do you have a follow-on question?
It did answer my question, and I have to make it known. Like, I come from an aesthetics-based background. The company that I used to work for, most of the people that I work for, they want to lose weight, look lean, get jacked, things like that. I do a ton of endurance events. We're working together because I have a tendency to wing it, and we'll figure it out. Which to this point, it's worked, but I also know to get to where I want to go, it's got to change, right? That's why we're working together. Yep. And that's why I sought you out, is because you do educate me on the importance of everything. So what I got from that whole spiel, just bringing it all the way down, right, is, okay, so those Mission tortillas, probably not the best choice for the fueling that we are trying to do, right? Especially when we have those higher carbohydrate counts. Sure, it looks pretty on paper, looks pretty in the tracker, but if I'm having 2 of those to where now I'm 60 to 100 grams of carbs short, that drastically impacts performance.
No doubt.
Especially when I'm looking to go on interval runs or going into a session with weights and doing a Metcon and things like that. So that's what I'm hearing. So to replace that, a better choice would probably be rice, standard tortillas, instead of the Carb Smart tortillas, still having the carbohydrates, less added fiber. I'm guessing quinoa, things like that, or what other things would you recommend? Bread?
Yeah, absolutely. It really depends when you're planning to consume this product, right? So when we're talking about things like this, typically we're talking about eating a meal at least 2 hours away from our workout time because like rice, bread, tortillas, that means something's going with it, which is typically like a protein and fat, like meat, right? It's not like you're just consuming the tortilla as a pre-workout. Maybe you do like one strategy would be like tortilla, honey, and a banana. Like, okay, we can talk about that for a pre-workout. Oh yeah, baby. Oh yeah, we'll get there. So the key is identifying exactly what you identified is, okay, like the high fiber options weren't giving me the fuel I needed. So now switching to things like rice, plain tortillas, right, quinoa. Yes, your head's in the right place. Now I'm going to pull in what you're going to learn in micronutrients, if you haven't already gone through it, is variety. Okay, and you've been doing a great job tagging me on Instagram. I love it with the color. So I encourage you to change it up. Use rice, use normal tortillas, use quinoa, use farro. Get outside your comfort zone. Use orzo, use couscous. The more variety you can get, the more nutrients you're going to get in variety, right? White rice has a ton of nutrients, okay? And it's a great carbohydrate source. But if you exclusively eat white rice, well, it doesn't have all nutrients, right? White rice isn't a multivitamin. So other grain products and starchy carbohydrates like potatoes, sweet potatoes are going to offer you a wide variety throughout the week for different nutrients to make sure that you're covering your micronutrient bases. And that's where we start plugging and playing like, okay, this week I did white rice on Monday, sweet potatoes Tuesday, red potatoes Wednesday. It's totally up to you which choices appeal to you and what you want to work with. We then try them, see how you feel, see what the numbers come back. Like, okay, your targets overall for the day. Here's my carb target. I'm trying to get this, pre, post workout, whatever. And we'll see, what portion sizes that equates to. So yeah, your mind is exactly where it needs to be, right? You identify that, hey, maybe this high fiber option isn't the best. Like, I'm starting to feel a little lethargic. I don't have enough energy. Let's switch to a higher, more carbohydrate dense, usable carbohydrate dense option that is going to give me the fuel I need. So there we go. We already have homework assignment number 1 between now and next time we talk, is we're going to change that up. I encourage you then to seek out some higher fiber foods to replace the tortillas, to eat elsewhere throughout the day. Things like beans, right? Even if you want to get maybe a high fiber cereal, one option that comes to mind is the Kashi brand Go Lean. The original, which doesn't taste that great. It's kind of a bland, whole wheat cereal.
I eat that. I used to eat that granola one all the time.
Yeah,
And
there
then
we go.
The
So
original one. Yep.
familiar.
Yep.
You're familiar.
Looks like sticks. Might taste like sticks too.
That's exactly
But it works.
It has 13 grams of fiber per serving, right? So now if you want to do like a healthy bowl of cereal as a treat, you can get some milk, which also has carbohydrate in it. Then you get the 13 grams of fiber plus the cereal, which still has usable carbohydrate. And if you want to go bonus, add like a cup of frozen blueberries. Now we got extra phytonutrients, extra fiber, extra carbohydrates, and a pretty well-balanced, delicious bowl of cereal. So just one example of many. I want you to kind of pick and choose what options work best from you. The goal is going to be to segregate those high fiber feedings outside of your training window, whether that's early morning, late night, right smack dab in the middle of the day. Totally up to you based on your training that day. When we talk about your carbohydrate feedings closer to training, again, the mission is getting sugar to the working muscle tissue as quickly as possible. So we want to limit things like fiber, protein, and fat as much as possible. Now, as we get into more of this endurance training, biking, swimming, running, now and you'll have to remind me, I don't think, maybe it has. Have you had time to go through the nutrient timing module yet?
No, I have not.
Okay, so we'll obviously spend a lot of time on that probably next session if you can get around to getting through that module. Yep. That's really going to break down when to eat, what to eat around your training, which means before training, during training, and after training. Because absolutely, if your workouts are now exceeding 60, 90 minutes, intra-workout is 100% necessary. As you'll learn in that module, okay, just like my analogy of a jet being refueled mid-flight, as your body goes 60, 90 minutes at moderate to higher intensities, your fuel sources are diminishing. Your preferred fuel source, carbohydrate, is either whatever you had in your bloodstream from what you ate that day. Once that's gone, you go to glycogen, which is still being used at the same time, but nonetheless, if you run out of usable fuel, your glycogen is all you have left for carbohydrate. That will eventually also become exhausted. When you're out of carbohydrates, like I just mentioned previously, you are then going to fall back to fat metabolism, okay? That process is aerobic metabolism, okay? It needs oxygen. You need oxygen to turn fat into energy. It's a slower process. So you got a ton of fat on your body to use, right? Obviously you less than, the standard American, but nonetheless, even at 10% body fat at your weight, it's a substantial amount of calories, right? So you've got plenty of fuel. The problem is your body's just slower to break it down than carbohydrates. It doesn't matter how fat adapted you are, you'll never be able to perform that close to VO2 max intensity that you want using fat, because again, you need oxygen. That's just physiology. And that's why carbohydrates in the endurance world can be really beneficial. But you will still be burning quite a bit of fat. The problem is we don't use the fat that we ate prior to exercise as fuel. Like if you kick off on a run, even a zone 2 run, low intensity, right? We're not even close to VO2 max here. You're burning fat, but you're not burning fat in a meal you just ate. You're burning fat that's stored on your body, like intramuscular triglyceride. So if you ate like a peanut butter bagel, there's a lot of fat in the peanut butter, but you're not using the fat as fuel. The bagel, on the other hand, gets digested and you're using the carbohydrates immediately as fuel. And that's the difference between fat and carbohydrates in that pre-workout meal. So when it comes to selecting foods right before you exercise, we want it to be almost exclusively carbohydrates, especially if it's an hour or less between your exercise time. You'll learn more the specific numbers and the targets to hit. But for you, you're looking 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrates right in that hour window before you work out so that you have adequate fuel in your bloodstream to use. Then, if your workout's going to exceed 90 minutes, you can start consuming 30 to 60 grams every hour to keep supplementing. And there are plenty of options there. Yes, to your point, there are gels, there are chews. If you like solid food options, we can talk Rice Krispie treats, candy like Nerds Ropes or gummy bears or Sour Patch Kids if you can tolerate eating that on the run.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise,
speaking my language.
of course, right? This is like the whole reason I got into the endurance world is so that I could eat all my favorite food from the 90s.
100%.
But other than that, like oral solutions work great too. So like BPN G1M is great. Tailwind is great. Scratch Labs is great. NAC Nutrition is great. There's all these different options. And what's great about like a powdered supplement like that, or I know you use First Form Ignition, I believe. I'd have to check.
And they also have an endurance one called Ultraformance.
Oh, perfect. Yep. So yeah, so I'm sure it's, the same. So it is scientifically designed to already have the right proportion of glucose and fructose. It's got electrolytes in it, and you're forced to use water. So it helps you stay hydrated. That's the downside to solid food and gels, even chews, is that there's no water, right? So as you consume that carbohydrate, you need to also consume adequate water. Otherwise, it's going to cause GI issues. But when you have a powder mixed with water and you're carrying it in a flask, well, now you're hydrating, getting carbs and electrolytes all in one place. It takes thinking out of the equation. It just depends if you can tolerate that for long periods of time and if you even like doing that. That's something that we're going to find out in training. But absolutely something to think about. If your workout's going to be longer than 90 minutes, intra-workout is going to be important, especially at the hour mark. So if you know in advance, hey, this training session is going to last longer than 90 minutes, at the 60-minute mark, I'm going to consume, let's say, 30 grams of carbohydrate. And you can try the First Form Ultra if that's what you want. Just keep note of everything you're trying so that I can stay abreast of what you're taking in. And then prior to that exercise period, 30 to 60 grams carbohydrates, right? If it's going to be a long workout, like 2 hours plus, then you can use the 1-2-3 rule. But before explaining that, I'm going to have you go through the nutrient timing module, okay? And we can spend some more time next call telling people what that is, because I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. We've got these little things we're working on step by step.
I love it. I'm going to make a note of that too, the 1-2-3 rule, so that we make sure to hit it next module. That way we have a little tease for the audience.
For sure.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
If you got time, I want you to tell me a little bit about what your training looks like between now and then next time we talk.
Okay, yeah. So normally I've been going on a 3-day rotation. It's been swimming, then it's been a run, then it's been like a recovery long distance bike day. So those are my main cardio workouts. So swimming for an hour, run for about an hour, and then cardio recovery 60 minutes to 90 minutes on the bike the third day. And then I repeat it, I swim, and then normally it's like a 12-minute warm-up. I have intervals for about 35 to 40 minutes. Those are our fartlek runs. Those are our just like taking high intensity up, bringing it back down, playing with speed variations, things like that, our RPEs, our threshold runs, and then I have another 12 minutes. So that one's a little bit longer of a session, my second run day of the week, and then once again, another bike recovery day on the back end of that. So that's my main cardio movements wise. And then normally for my strength workouts, I have a main motor movement. So I've been going legs, push, pull, kind of like a rest day on that on that fourth day, and then it just repeats.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when it comes to our carbohydrate strategy, obviously for your endurance-based workout of the day, that's where the carbohydrate timing is going to be really important. Before, during, and after, especially on those high intensity days. So that rule of 90 minutes really applies to like a standard endurance workout. When intensity does get high, like during interval training, hill repeats, things like that, it does burn more carbohydrates, right? And again, I'm going to let you get to the nutrient timing module to explain more why, but it has to do on which form of metabolism we're using. Like, are we using anaerobic glycolysis? Are we using aerobic metabolism? So on and so forth. At high intensities without oxygen, our bodies are going to be forced to use anaerobic metabolism, which just crushes your carbohydrate storage. So even though the workout's shorter, your carb needs are still as high, if not higher. But we'll talk more about that. So during that portion, right, the run, swim, or bike, carbohydrate intake is going to be really crucial, okay? So it's probably going to be where we consume more of those fun foods, candy, Rice Krispie treats, things like we just talked about. During your strength session, especially if it's a little bit more sedentary, if your heart rate isn't really high and you've got a little bit more downtime, your body's not jostling as much, you can get a more whole food-based pre-workout meal in, post-workout meal in. So that could still be a time where we can sneak in some, high protein, fiber, fat, so on and so forth. Again, just because we're so limited throughout the day. It's really the endurance workout that we need to be more strategic about our food choices, because it's all based on our body's ability to digest that food. And again, things like fiber, fat, and protein take our bodies a long time to digest, which kind of slows down the carbohydrates getting to where they need to go. But we'll talk more about that. So I really want you to stay focused on hitting at least that 30 to 60 grams, simple carbohydrates before that workout for the endurance workout. Keep things simple. If you want to use the supplement, use the supplement. If you want to use the whole food, again, keep it really simple. Focus on simple carbohydrates, right? White breads, tortillas, things that don't have a ton of fiber. Then if you need intra-workout, if your workout is going to be high intensity and longer than 60 minutes, or moderate intensity, longer than 90 minutes, hit some intra-workout at the hour mark. Try some of that ultra if you have it on hand. And then post-workout, the fueling strategy remains the same. We're going to try to get, for you, at least 1 gram per kilo of carbohydrates post-workout. Okay, so that's going to be a pretty substantial amount based on your body weight, right? It's going to be probably closer to 90 grams. So make sure we get that in immediately post-workout. So our body, especially because you have 2 training sessions in a day, we need to start rebuilding that glycogen, okay? After your endurance workout, you can keep protein low, like 10, 15 grams at most. Because again, it slows gastric emptying. Our purpose after an endurance workout isn't muscle repair as much because you didn't break down as much muscles as a resistance session. But you burned a ton of glycogen, right? Because your engine was working hard. So we want to replace the carbohydrate loss as quick as possible because you have a second training session coming up same day. So that is where hitting that 1 gram per kilo carb of, again, simple carbohydrates ideally is going to be important, okay? During your strength workout, we can be a little bit more flexible with our food choices, especially because although strength is going to play a role in the Norseman, okay, the endurance workouts are going to be more important to make sure that your engine is fully primed to get through that distance. So being really good to make sure you have energy for those is going to be my priority. Not to say your strength workouts are not important, because they are. But I think the priority is going to be really, really dialing in those endurance sessions.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The strength portion is just going to come into play, doing all those big hills, being able to survive the hills on both the bike, the run. But the endurance factor in a triathlon, especially a full distance triathlon, for people that don't know, that's a 2.4 mile swim, that's a 112 mile bike ride, and a 26.2 mile run at the end. So when Erik's talking about how it's cool to be strong, but it doesn't necessarily benefit us the most bang for the buck when we're doing a triathlon and training for a triathlon, that's what he's talking about. That is why this is the focus. It's A goal, B goal, C goal. Like when you're setting those up, A, B is endurance, figuring out endurance fueling, C goal is staying strong.
Right. If we look at, professional athletes that are elite in their sports, I think a great representation would be Sports Illustrated has an issue they come out with called the Body Edition. If you're familiar with it, it's basically where the athletes are like nude. It's a really good way of showing that body types are really different amongst elite athletes. Your body's going to be a reflection of your sport, right? A lineman looks a lot different than a cornerback, looks a lot different than a linebacker. A soccer player looks a lot different than, let's say, an elite distance runner. Well, okay, that was a bad example because at least they're a little
they're a little the same, but I totally get what you're coming from, because there's the last Olympics with the U.S. Olympic rugby team, one of the captains, the females, she's gotten really big recently, especially in the body space because she was in the Sports Illustrated magazine, but she is a monster. She
Yeah.
is strong. She's not overly lean. She's lean though, but she's
Yeah, but
strong
she's a
and
beast.
yes, and I can't remember her name. She's brown hair. But like for her sport, her body type, the position she plays is exactly what she needs, and she's showing females that it's okay to be strong. Right? You're not going to get bulky. She's not a bulky woman. She is fueled and has the muscle mass for the sport that she is playing, and therefore she doesn't have to be skinny. She's not getting on stage in a bikini because she's feeling for what she is making a priority.
Exactly. So if we look at the endurance space, right, like elite triathlon competitors, right, they are going to have less muscle mass on average than somebody that's like in, the hybrid athlete world. It's not that hybrid athletes don't run triathlons, but if we look at like the top tier, right, the people that are winning, typically they're a little bit leaner. And that's because, right, endurance just makes our bodies look a little different based on efficiency. Muscle tissue is metabolically active tissue. Anytime you fire a muscle cell, it requires energy. So in a game that lasts, 20 plus hours or 15 hours or whatever in these long endurance events, okay, it's a lot of fuel you need to provide if you have a lot of muscle. So on average, having a little leaner physique tends to require a little less energy overall, right? And it makes it easier to compete at these higher levels. So your body's going to be a reflection of the sport. And I'm not saying you're planning to be a professional triathlete, but in this sense, where this is now the goal of the year, obviously we're going to structure our nutrition accordingly, and our body's probably going to shift a little bit. Not to say you can always, if you lose a little bit of muscle mass, you can always gain it right back as soon as you decide to get out of the endurance game. But yes, I know we've talked about that point several times now. But again, it's more so to get the mindset going like, hey, it's going to be okay if I lean out a little bit, because I know as a man, like that was really hard for me when I got into the endurance space, is losing size. Like I was like, oh my gosh, like my muscles are shrinking, and now I'm out of the endurance space and I'm on my way back up, which, again, it's just a reflection of my priorities right now.
That last point is perfect. Reflection of your priorities right now. And that's where we're at. As I mentioned, and I know we've talked about it, but I think people this just needs to get driven home. You're going to have peaks and valleys, and you're going to have different goals on an extended time frame, on an extended period of time, right? So in this chapter of my life, A goal, B goal, Norseman. What do we have to do to get ready for the world's toughest triathlon? C goal is keeping muscle mass on. We still want that lean body mass. We want it to stay a little bit higher. We don't want it to go through the floor, obviously, but we do want to lean out. So right now, even though it's difficult for my brain to get through it, it's, hey, we are going to shrink down a little bit. You're not going to have the biggest of biceps. You're not going to have the lat spread, right? But that is required to hit the A goal and B goal, right? So I think that I know we've hit on it, but it's because this is what we're making a priority in this chapter of life. And that doesn't mean that next chapter of life, it's something completely different and we can work our way towards that. It's just one thing at a time. I always say, you can have your cake and eat it too. It's just, you got to play around with your macros and things like that. But when it comes to goal setting, it's to optimize your goal and to hit your goal. Sometimes you have to be a little bit narrower, take a time off from the weight room and things like that you want or that you traditionally have done to hit your goal in this moment, and then adjust from there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head, man. And honestly, somebody that has the mental fortitude to get through the training and the event itself, or something like the Norseman or an ultra endurance event, I mean, even a marathon, really, if you have that level of discipline to train and compete in something like that, man, switching your goals to then, the reverse of, hey, I'm going to compete strongman, I'm going to put muscle mass on. Like, you have the mental fortitude to get there. So never feel like you won't be able to get back to where you were previously. The body's going to shift again as a reflection of your sport. So I'm glad to hear that you're all good with that. So kind of summarizing what I want coming up now between now and the next time we talk is, I want you to focus on that pre-workout nutrition, hitting that 30 to 60 grams of simple carbs, intra-workout if needed, and then post-workout after your endurance sessions, again, limiting protein and fat, keeping it carbohydrate focused. at least immediately after. And then at the hour mark, hour and a half mark, you can eat a full meal again. But I just need those simple carbs to get in the system quick, get to where they need to go, so your glycogen can start being rebuilt. So what I need from you is I need you to take notes on what you eat before the workout, during the workout, and after the workout. And I need you to let me know how you're feeling. Scale of 1 to 10, subjective assessment. What's my energy like today? Do that for both sessions. Okay. From there, we can look at daily totals. We can say like, okay, what were your calories? What were your total carbs? Did you get enough fiber in? So on and so forth. I think that's a good starting place because you've got some, a couple things to do within the context of that objective. And you can try a couple different, options, whether it's a powdered oral solution, a gel, Rice Krispie treat, whatever it is that appeals to you. Now's the time to start experimenting and see what works and what doesn't work. So yeah, now the fun begins.
Beautiful. I love it. And then going forward, we're going to be able to tweak because we're going to find out what works, what doesn't, and what is, kind of working the best. And that's where we really start to tighten the screws because it may work here, but then not in the long run, right? So that's why we're starting this far out. That's why we're making note of this for me to bring it to you.
Absolutely. And
Cool.
actually, one more thing, if you don't mind, because I think this will be
Absolutely.
good for listeners. So obviously, using the tracker, I can go in and see what you're eating. If you wouldn't mind, if you have time, at least one day, track everything like normal so we can get the totals easily tallied up. But keep a handwritten log too of the specific times you ate everything and then the specific times you trained. And then next call we'll go through. I woke up here, here's what I ate, here was my training session, here's what I ate before, during, after, so on and so forth. And then we can do some live tweaks, right? I'd be like, ooh, okay, like good thinking there, but maybe we should have adjusted this or that or whatever comes. Or maybe I'll be like, man, that was perfect. Like, how did you feel?
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yes, I can do that. And that way we can get you as much data because with data, then we can make adjustments. If we don't have the data, we can't do that.
Yeah, baby. Absolutely. Absolutely. So we talked a lot and I think we covered some good ground, but I did not ask you if you had any questions. So do you have any questions and how can I better support you in this next week?
Honestly, the questions that I had, I think will be better served for next week.
Okay.
It was regarding intuitive eating, the what, the why, the how, why an athlete or extreme athlete, it's difficult to intuitive eat like the traditional way without the hybrid model. But I think after going through the nutrient timing module, I think that conversation will be better for next week.
Yes.
And I guess like you gave me I'm going to have to listen back to this episode myself because you were spouting off like other options for carbohydrates. And then I have some nice little homework that I'm going to add to the homework that you gave me, is the nutrient timing module. Have to get that done. Right. And other high fiber foods that I can work in other than those tortillas so that we can actually have the carbohydrates working the way that they're supposed to work, but also adding in all this other extra variety as well. So that's two pieces of homework that I have. But other than that, you answered all of my questions, my issues that were going on in my sit rep. I guess we'll touch a little bit on it. I was struggling with hydration.
Okay.
I don't know if it's I'm just you provide a chart. It's the P chart, right? Because it's the easiest way to look at hydration just from not going to the doctor.
Yep.
And like I'm constantly in like that middle tier,
Okay.
right? And I don't know if it's possibility I'm not taking in enough sodium and electrolytes because when you clean out your diet, a lot of people don't realize is that when you clean out your nutrition plan, you actually need sodium. And when you clean it all out, everybody wants to eat really, really strict, and then you're getting no sodium at all. So I don't know if that's part of it or what's going on.
So what I'll need from you then is using that tracker. I'll want to get a total tally of sodium. Okay. So obviously any processed food you log in the nutrition tracker will automatically add to your daily sodium, but you need to be diligent about if you salt your food, make sure you're tracking that too. Okay. And then if you can try to measure it. So for reference, I want to say, oh gosh, now I'm having a brain
Not a
fart.
pinch of this and a dash of that.
I want to say a quarter teaspoon is 500 500 milligrams. Let me check.
That sounds like a big number.
Oh, shoot. I just put a
We need
quarter
our
in.
Joe Rogan's version of Jamie. Just like, Jamie,
Yeah, I
what
know. I
is
need it.
500
That'd be awesome.
milligrams of
Yes.
sodium?
So most sodium, if you do a quarter teaspoon, is 500 to 600 milligrams of sodium. Okay. So if you want to do an eighth teaspoon, okay, that's going to be half of that. It's like 250. So use that as your reference. So for the standard person, and I'll let you get to the hydration module for more detail if you haven't already gone. Did you go through the hydration module?
I have gotten halfway through it.
Okay. So in that, right, the baseline need for people really ranges, but it's around 2,000 milligrams a day. And that's just for the average person not exercising. For every hour that you sweat, okay, so whether it's a physical job, you're outside, you're working out, whatever it is, for every hour you sweat, you add another 300 to 1,000 milligrams on top of that, depending on how much you sweat. So I think for you, again, you know, especially once we dial in calories and carbohydrate targets, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do some sweat testing, right? We can get some Gatorade patches, send you out on a run, a bike, a swim. Well, maybe not a swim, but a run and a bike. Sorry, my brain was just on a roll. And we will get some sweat testing data to see if we can better target how much sodium every hour you should be consuming. So if you know off the top of your head that if you wear dark clothing and you get a ton of white sweat rings,
I got photos from my 7 marathons. I was just like, I'm salty.
Yeah. So you're probably a salty sweater. So then your hourly intake is probably closer to the 1,000 mark than it is the 300 mark. So if you want to meet in the middle, say 500, okay, or even let's just say 500 for sake of argument, okay? 2,000 is your baseline need. You're working out twice a day for at least an hour. Okay, that's another 1,000. So now 3,000 is your baseline need at minimum. So see where you're at sodium wise based on the tracker and by measuring how much you're adding to your food. And we'll just see where you're at. If we need to go up from there, we will go up. The thing that we be careful about with adding salt and sodium is more is not always better, especially over time. There's one thing we know about heart disease and high blood pressure is that increased sodium, like a sodium intake that's higher than it needs to be consistently, is strongly correlated to high blood pressure, right? Which is an adverse condition in terms of cardiometabolic health. We don't want to have high blood pressure. It's not great for our heart and our body. So if we can keep sodium at just the right amount, that's what we're shooting for, because we can't, like other things, just overshoot and be like, oh, it's no big deal. Like, I'll piss it out or my body will just deal with it. Like, sodium in too high amounts over time can be problematic for your long-term health. So we do want to be a little bit more strategic. So get a sodium count. Let's see where you're at. And then, we can address that issue next time as well. So now you've got even more homework, which is great. A lot of things to look forward to this week. Throughout the week, keep me posted with how things are going. If we need to make adjustments, we'll make adjustments. And then we will talk about those adjustments as we kick off the next episode next week.
Beautiful. Yep. And luckily, with the tracker that you provided with me, it tracks all that stuff pretty easily. So it'll just be making sure that the sodium that I add to it, that's not just coming into my food, that I do ensure to track. So luckily, thanks for the tools. Thank you, modern technology. Thank God. We're here to make things on easy mode, and that's just like, it may sound like a lot, but realistically, it's not a lot. It's traditional homework. It's something that I'm going to do or I'm not going to do. And if I want to be successful, I do it. If I don't want to be successful, I don't. And that comes down to any goal achievement, right? If you want to do it, you're going to do it. If you truly want the outcome, you're going to do it. If not, well, I guess, I talked about this last week. It's just like, you should actually probably give up on that goal. You should get it out of your mind, because if you're not willing to take the steps to do it, you don't truly want it, and it's just going to bother you, and it's going to make you miserable because you're not willing to actually do what it takes to achieve it. So either do the steps that are required or just give up on it. And that's okay too.
Yeah, no doubt, right? We just have to be honest with ourselves. And when it comes to things like this, like, I'm making you do a lot of work, right? As your coach, right? Like, you could just tell me what you ate in a day and I could do all these calculations for you. And I could tell you exactly what to eat and give you a meal plan, right? The problem with that is you don't learn anything then. It's just handed to you. By making you go through these steps and physically do it yourself, now when we're done working together, you'll be able to take what you've learned. You now have this new set of skills and tools and apply that to different goals, right? As you age, right? When you're 50, 60, 70, you can adjust your nutrition accordingly because you understand nutrition at a foundational level, opposed to paying for a meal plan that somebody just provided you that you got sick of after however many months. And now you're like, I need a new updated meal plan. My goals changed, or I got sick of this food. So it seems like extra work. It is. There's intention behind it. And that's making sure that you actually learn how to do this for yourself.
And I got to drive this point home. Is knowledge is not power. Implementation of knowledge is power. So you are giving me the knowledge, but you are also making me implement. You are making me apply this to drive home that I can do it, I know it, and I can even regurgitate it to you. Knowledge is not power. You can be as most knowledgeable as anybody else on earth. The most knowledgeable person on earth doesn't matter if you don't apply it, if you don't implement it in the world.
100%. 100%.
So thank you, Coach. I appreciate you. I'm going to take a nice look at this homework, and I'm very thankful for you. No matter how time-consuming it is, but that time is well spent.
Well, it's going to get easier. It's definitely a lot more front-end work, right? Obviously, the more you do it, the easier it becomes, which saves time, and the less education modules you'll be running through. So as soon as you get through all the educational modules, we make our tweaks, then it's just constant implementation, right? So each week you're going to get a little bit more time back in your pocket. So I appreciate the effort you're putting in right now, right? It will pay dividends in the long run. And now is the time to be dealing with all of this, right? Because come next month and the subsequent months, it's going to start getting really serious, and we got to make sure we're in a really good spot. And we've already, got most of what we need accomplished.
Beautiful. I can't wait to dive into this, and I appreciate you more than ever. Erik, let the people know where to find you, how to find you, what kind of what you offer, and then we'll sign off.
Yeah, so Grunt Grub is my business. You can find me primarily on Instagram if you need to get a hold of me quickly. You can also check my website out, gruntgrubrd.com, or you can find me over at my partner company, Modern Athlete, or Modern Athlete Strength Systems, Mass. We do a lot over there. Got some nutrition guides up for sale. We do group coaching, one-to-one coaching that pairs, performance, strength, and conditioning coaching with nutrition. So you can find me a couple different places, but if you need to get in touch with me quickly, Grunt Grub on Instagram is probably the best way to do that.
And another for the Modern Strength, you're dropping another program in May, correct? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, so we are coming out for our first run of group coaching May 1st. There's a limited amount of seats because we try to keep the class size small so that we can so each student can get as much out of it. It's like if you've been to, either the military in a large classroom setting or college, okay, if you've got 200 people in a room, okay, it's really hard to get to everybody to make sure that everyone gets a lot out of it. But with a small class size, it feels more intimate, and I'm able to directly interact with each of the students more so. So long story short, yes, May 1st, we are launching group coaching at Modern Athlete Strength Systems. And you can just go ahead and Google Modern Athlete Strength, and you should be directed straight to the website to get more details there. Thanks for the plug.
Oh, absolutely. I know a couple of people that are already on the waiting list and are excited for that. So
yeah, baby.
Can't wait to see it. I'm thankful to be working with you. People, if you want to find me, Instagram is where I'm most active, at Sully Loopkey. I have all the platforms in my name, Facebook, Twitter, X, and TikTok. But I'm telling you, if you guys message me on there, probably going to be a very long delay because I am active on Instagram, and as a quote-unquote content creator, I was told to focus on one platform until you can handle it. So that's where I am. One thing at a time, folks. One thing at a time. And yeah, so if you want to work with me, let me know. I'm very big in the mental and physical transformation side of things, even work a little bit in emotional. And then I recommend you to people like Erik for the nutritional side of things, because I just dabble in it, but I'm by no means a professional.
My man.
Yes, sir. So signing off. Appreciate you. This is the Go All Out Podcast, session 4, and I'll see y'all next week.
Until next time, baby. Out.